Have you ever felt like your retriever might not turn out like you hoped for it to? We get it. The truth is, training a retriever isn't simple, but it doesn't have to be hard. On the Build From Here podcast, you're going to hear real stories from real people who used to be stuck with their retrievers, but are now confident they're on the right path to training their dog successfully. Welcome to the Build From Here podcast. On this episode, it's my great honor to be introducing you to CGA member Chris Copeland. Chris has been with us for quite some time now, 7 or 8 years or so. So he's been with us pretty much since the beginning. Cornerstone's been around coming up on 9 years as we're recording this episode. Yeah. And it's so it's just been a great honor to have him here for this long. And that's one of the things I love about our members is that, when you become a member, you're not in or out, you're a member for life. And that's one of the beautiful things about it. But Chris has got some amazing stories to share. We share a lot of common interests as well. And I love his approach on dogs in general. It's not just about this amazing duck dog, but it's also about this amazing family dog that he can take on all of his adventures, an adventure dog, so to speak. So you're going to really enjoy this story. So without further ado, welcome aboard, Chris. Glad you're here.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you having me. Was really excited whenever I got the note to fill out the questionnaire, tell the story, and I'm just honored to be here and happy to be a member of CGA.
Man, it's our honor. And when I saw your story come through, it just fired me up. And, since we've talked and kind of going back all that, you start to remember the conversations we've had early on, and you start to remember all those interactions. And I can't even believe it's been 8 years. It doesn't really feel like it. I mean, it's just gone by so fast.
It certainly has. From the time I got my, first pup to start the CGA program, how much this change is amazing. And my surroundings personally, you guys as a business, the content of CGA, the member environment, wow, can't say enough about it. I have to admit, I'm not a social media person. I have enough busy stuff to do in life, but I really do. I am fascinated every day by seeing the members asking open questions. And that's the thing I've always appreciated about y'all's forum is people can go on there to get help, because you guys have helped me so many times, even before we had the member forum, where I would send you an email with something I was experiencing, and always helpful. And it's just fun to watch the members be able to do that and help other members. It's a really cool experience.
It blows me away. I mean, we're really blessed. The people, people like you, and it's really just the people that are they're kind. And, nobody's there trying to, I think it's just because our people are comfortable in themselves too. They're not here to prove anything. They have nothing to prove because they're here to learn. And that approach, that here to learn, is really the right approach to have. Well, Chris, let's go back on your story. I want people to know who you are. You've been with us a while. We know you, but I know the listeners, it'd be cool to get to know you. Where'd you grow up? What's your background? And, I'm always curious, how did we get into dogs? Like, we all find this common interest. Where did it all begin for you?
Yeah. So, I grew up in Georgia, multiple places in Georgia. When my father graduated from, Auburn University, we moved back to my family's, both my families are from Valdosta, Georgia. And my mother's side of the family had a farm on the outside of town, and my dad's parents lived in town. And we lived there for the first 7 years. Then my dad up and decided he wanted to go to medical school. So we moved to Augusta, Georgia when I was 7 years old. And yeah, I thought that was an out-of-body experience, but it turned out great. But my brother and I continued to go back to the family farm. We were living our lives in Augusta, but then the way my brother and I always like to tell it, we were shipped off in the summertime to go live with my grandparents, and my brother and I both cropped tobacco on my grandparents' farm.
Wow.
And, we were rambunctious kids, fishing, hunting, turtles. We were just outside all the time. My brother nor I, he's 3 years older than I am, neither of us ever played video games. We didn't like to be inside at all. We wanted to go outside and tear things up.
Oh, yeah.
But on one particular trip at Thanksgiving, we went back to my grandparents' farm, and I was at my grandparents' house, and my uncle came in for the 4 o'clock afternoon coffee that they always did. And he decided that he wanted to invite me to go duck hunting. And I had no idea what to expect or what to even think, but I knew I was excited that my uncle wanted to take me along. So clearly didn't sleep the night before, and he came and got me early, and we sneaked through the woods with a flashlight, and we end up on this creek on the backside of my grandparents' farm. And he sat me down on the sandbar along the edge of the creek and handed me a shotgun, which they had taught me how to shoot and handle. And he just said, "Do you want me to sit with you?" And I said, "Nah, I think I'll be fine." And I just remember sitting there as kind of watching, that's that one thing that I think is still common for all waterfowlers is that, that 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes in the blind before it's legal shooting time. So not only is it just a beautiful time of day, but the bird activity, before you can actually do anything, it's so incredible to watch. And that was really my first experience with it. And it was so quiet, and I hear the wing whistles come over my head and had no idea what it was. I look up and finally I make that association. Within 20 minutes, I got a shot off and was lucky enough to hit one and picked it up out of the water, and it was a male wood duck. And all of those colors, I was in awe of what I had in my hand. And ultimately that led not only to me being I'll be a lifelong waterfowler, supporter of Ducks Unlimited, any conservation group that is preserving habitat for waterfowl or songbirds. But I ended up studying birds in school.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I have a
Wow.
general biology degree, but all of my upper level electives were birds and marine fish. That's kind of where I like to spend my time. I figured if I had to spend my money for going to college, I was going to enjoy what I studied.
That's cool.
So that's kind of where, what got me into it. But as the
And
kids,
then
yeah,
question on the college thing.
yeah.
Did you go in knowing that that's what you wanted to study, or what's the story there?
Well, I mean, I knew I was going to pursue a degree in biological science of some sort. Aspiration was to go to medical school like my father. I was not that good of a student. But I was a decent student. But, as my dad got into it, once a physician gets into practice, you finish with residency. I mean, I think he ended up doing like 12 years of school, just,
Oh, man.
post graduate stuff. And really being a physician it's not easy. There's a lot to it, and you have to have a really special temperament to deal with patients, to deal with insurance companies, to deal with regulations. You know, and over time, I just kind of lost interest in that, but I did love wildlife sciences. But I loved most specifically is the ecology of birds and fish and how those things relate to us, and that's really where I concentrated my efforts. But then as these things go, I mean, people ask me, they're like, "Well, what'd you study in school?" I said, "Study biology, birds and fish." And they're like, "Well, how did you end up in the plant business?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I worked on a farm my whole life. After I graduated from college, my wife and I were dating. We got married right before I graduated, and we had and within a year, we had our first child on the way. And Carter was born in 2001. And I was working on a golf course at that time, but that particular golf course was only open 8 months out of the year. So I had to find something to do in between, because you can't support a family if you're not working.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah, and only certain segments of the golf business pay enough to support the family anyway. And so I met a guy that my wife knew. She was managing a restaurant, and one of their regular customers owned a nursery. And he invited me out for an interview. And when I say nursery, I was thinking about a garden center. and this nursery was 400 acres at the time, of potted plants.
Wow.
Yeah, it was impressive, and once I got started with him, I've been in the nursery business ever since. I just recently left the plant production side to join a different company, but working on working in the nursery business outside, just it was everything I wanted, and that's what gave me an opportunity to really start with dogs is because I had a chance I could take the dogs to work with me.
That is awesome. I mean, goodness. I mean, there's a lot. This isn't the podcast where I have a lot of questions about all the nursery stuff. My wife and I like to garden together, so I love seeing stuff grow.
Yeah,
But there's honestly a lot of parallels between the dog's growth and then seeing plants grow and all that the development cycles and everything.
that's a good point.
So I'm fascinated by all that stuff, honestly.
That's a great point. So it's really my wife's uncle's fault. He got us our first dog. Um,
Okay.
she came from a kennel she came from a kennel in Greenville, South Carolina. He was a college professor, and he had a couple of dogs of his own, and
Duck dogs or just
he had a black Labrador. Her name was Anna, and he didn't have any children, and he had a lot of time on his hands, so he trained her to be an adventure dog, hunting dog. She did all kinds of things. She was a fantastic dog, and so he worked with that breeder, at that kennel and hooked us up with a litter, and he picked a pup for us. But unfortunately, within a week of me getting her home, she got really, really sick, and
oh man.
yeah, it turns out the litter, the immunizations didn't work or something, and the whole litter got
Oh
parvoed.
no.
Um,
Oh no. Yeah, that's really bad right there.
yeah, but we had a really good vet in, Edgefield, South Carolina at the time. Have to give a shout out to Clarence Bagshaw. He took her in and kept her for 4 days and saved her, and
Wow.
she was a fantastic dog. I tried training her. That if I can't count the number of times I had to swim for a bumper for myself, 'cause she would not do it. She did not like retrieving bumpers, but I I can't count the number of waterfowl she picked up, the hours we spent in the dove field. She understood, the exercises that we were trying to do, but she really was just a great hunting companion. Um,
Wow.
and so that's kind of where it started, and boy, Nellie we put her down just shy of 15 years. She lived a long time,
Wow. That's amazing.
and yeah, the kids, I I recommend for everybody. My son is wanting to start that journey here pretty soon after he finishes law school, and I promised him that I'd get him a dog, when he was done. But there's always this question about, do I have enough time? Do do I have enough time if I have a young family? Do I have enough time for a dog? Much less do I have enough time to train my own dog. Um, and I can honestly say that it never felt like a burden to us. Yeah, we can't see our lives without one.
That's amazing. And I think it's the right mentality too. I mean, some people may genuinely not have enough time, but if you don't have enough time for a dog, maybe some other priorities should be reconsidered, right?
Uh,
I mean, it doesn't take a lot of time to train a dog,
right.
20 minutes a day, 4 days a week. And if you don't have that amount of margin in your life, that's something to think about. I'll just say that.
Yeah, but that was the thing that really struck me with, starting back when I joined CGA, when 52 plus was not available at that time, and now it's even more refined. That training, just like with work, just like raising children, that training is every moment. Every moment there's a decision to be made, there's a conversation to have. And it's, and I remember you telling me this one time, don't allow the dog to start habits that you're going to have to unwind later. And, those were the things that I didn't know with the first two dogs. I trained him to sit. I trained him to come back when called. I trained him to retrieve a little bit, but never did I create what I feel like I have today, that bond that I have with my dog. And the
Wow.
it's just being I'm just always very conscious of my demeanor around the dogs now. So I don't
So going from, let's dive into that a little bit because that's important. You said something I think it's really profound, and I hope a lot of people caught that. And it wasn't, you taught your dog these things. It's not what you know that's the problem. It's what you don't know that can be the problem.
yes.
I think there's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know. I was on a call with someone today that had run into some problems. They're not a Cornerstone member yet. They're thinking about becoming one. They've got this dog and now it's not retrieving. And we kind of diagnosed some of the challenges they're facing. And one of those was they were retrieving until the dog wanted to quit. And that was one of those small things. And then from there, they would stop.
Yeah.
That's one of those small details that if you stopped even earlier than that, that's the better time to stop. Because if you don't let the dog quit, the dog doesn't know it can quit.
Yes.
Like that's just one small detail. But I want to kind of dive into that coming from your perspective because well, actually, let's go back even further. How did you learn to train these dogs before Cornerstone back in the day? What were you buying books? What's your journey there? How did you go from getting a dog? I'm going to train this dog. Let's go to that part.
Yeah, so initially it was all about any book that I could get my hands on, gun dog, water dog, compare, contrast. I mean, I collected. Uh, I've probably got 20 books downstairs that I've picked up along the way. And it started when I was young, long before I ever had a dog, just reading about it. But then before my wife's uncle got us the first dog, Nellie, he gave me a book that was kind of off topic, but it was focused on the psychology of dogs. How do dogs
Oh,
think? And you guys talk a lot about
mhm.
this as well, which was another way. It was another place where I really made a quick connection between CGA and everything that I'd learned to that point. Is how the dog learns. If you understand how the dog learns, because my second dog, she was doing everything I asked of her in training. She had a lot of prey drive for a bumper, and I took her out to a quail field one time and just wanted to get her introduced to the scent and let her be around other dogs. She had no interest in picking up those birds. Took her to a dove field, same thing, no interest. Took her on a duck hunt, same thing, no interest. I'd almost have to walk her to the downed bird and put her on top of it.
Wow.
And I was so frustrated that I called a friend of my uncle's, trained upland dogs, and I had a quick conversation with him, told him what was going on, and I was frustrated to the point where I was considering selling the dog. Um,
That's a
I mean, yeah, I would never think something like that right now. Um, but he gave me a quick tip. He said, "Here's what you do." And so my son and I took her out to a place near our house where they had a tower and got some fresh quail. She was in her crate in the back of my truck, and I put the crate of quail right down in front of her kennel, and we drove out into the back of his property. So by the time we got there, she was pretty amped up with that smell of those pen raised birds, and we ran a couple of birds up in the box, let them out, gunshot, and she was sitting right there. And that association of those smells, that gunshot, bird flying, and the bird fell right in front of her, but it was winged and still moving. That thing ran up under the truck, and she went after it. And she came out. She had oil streaks on the back of her back, but she had the bird. And from then on, she was probably one of the most highly amped dogs I've worked with. But we eventually tempered that, and that's where we really had to focus mostly on not breaking it at the gunshot, because that was initially her worst habit, and that was a challenge for me. But as I got to know CGA, I just realized that I had not placed those steps in the right area of development, because otherwise that would have never happened. Because the last 2 dogs that I've had were just incredibly steady, at the gunshot.
Wow. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's a place that I really feel for people that go down those paths because you just don't know it until you know it.
Mhm.
And like we know it and we've seen people go down that path. There's just some things that if you don't know it ahead of time, you're going to find out. And when you find out, it's not a fun thing to find out because you realize, we're going to go way back to fix some things and work through it.
Right.
But that's something that sometimes people have to go on that journey. And if you go on that journey, that's okay. The big thing is that you just learn it. And that if you find yourself there, I will say, like you said, you wish you kind of knew that to begin with. It is a little easier to learn it on the front end.
Mhm.
You don't need to experience it yourself if you don't have to. And I'll say that for anybody listening. Hopefully, if you're on the fence there thinking about some things, like just really think about what you're doing before you get started because you can do it right and you can do it halfway right, but doing it the full right way is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things, especially the dog being steady, whether they're steady in the house, steady around other people, in the car when traveling, just having a dog that is very calm and attentive to directions being offered. It it really struck me on my first big waterfowling trip that I took a few years ago, and seeing dogs breaking on a gunshot when there's 8 guns in an A-frame blind, seeing dogs, bringing back birds that were wounded and not delivering to hand, and then that wounded bird is flying through the A-frame with loaded weapons. I just and again, the everyone's conscious of that, and the young guy who was our guide at that moment, this pup was young, and he knew that's where he had to focus, and by the 2nd year, he poured all of his energy into that, and by the next year when he guided us, the dog was just sharp as a razor and has been wonderful ever since. So it really is interesting how, as you guys talk about so much, every dog is different, and it's have a clear understanding of what you want from the dog and when it's finished, and create your path there based on what the dog's willing to give you. Um, and just be patient. Be methodical, but be patient.
100%. Kind of building off of that, where let's dive into your cornerstone story a little bit. Why did you choose to train a different way? Like what made you seek out cornerstone? And then kind of preceding that, let's talk about the dog that you got starting there. Where did all that begin? Why'd you get another dog and what was your goals and hopes for this dog?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as I said, as Nellie got older, we had to put her down when she was 14, just shy of 15 years old. And at that time, my second dog, Izzy, she would have been, I think, 8 at that time. So she was starting to get, up there a little bit, still very athletic and still highly driven. But I thought that was the right time to start. And I had always dreamed of buying, a dog from a very reputable breeder. And, because I'd followed Ducks Unlimited and been a member for many years, I knew about Wild Rose Kennels. And so I started the conversation with them, got on the wait list. And that's really what sparked my interest. I mean, if I was going to invest that much and have my first real, what I felt was my dream dog, uh, I knew I wanted to go about training in a different way. I wanted to be a better trainer, because my family members were not going to let me get a puppy and send it off for 6 months for training. But training was something I've had a passion for. I wanted to be better. And when I found Cornerstone, I was it took I think at that time you guys had like a preview and I started walking through the content and that's my learning style is I like that step by step, like building a model airplane or something. It's just follow the steps and be methodical. So when Tilly came home, I mean, we started from day one. I mean, sit for your food, built my own place board, um, clicker and treat. I mean, just every bit of that process, it felt like in retrospect, it was like a blur. You know, those first few months went by so fast. Heel training all over the neighborhood and stores, and she was just one of the best dogs we had ever had in our home. She was very well behaved. She didn't chew things up. Um,
Wow.
but the interesting thing was that Izzy, the older dog, just didn't really have much interest in her. You know, Tilly would want to go and play, and Izzy just kind of brush her off. And there were times where they would interchange with each other in a positive way, chasing each other around the yard. But she just never really had attention for her like she did for Nellie when they were stuck together all the time. But over the course of a year, it took her on her first duck hunt. She made her first retrieve, and I have videos saved somewhere of us doing training retrieves with the bird after the hunt. And she's just a fantastic dog. And there were bumps along the way. Um, I think I was telling you earlier, there was a particular time where she just didn't seem interested in training. I'd get home from work and I'd take her out, and she'd make it about 10 minutes and it just kind of give up. She wanted to go chew grass or sniff weeds, or she just wanted to do anything other than what I was asking her to do. And that went on for a few days, and I finally got frustrated. And I think I emailed you and Barton, and you guys both replied. And I think the summary suggestion was, try to break up the routine. Put her in a kennel, make sure that training time is her best time of the day. So my wife and I came up with a plan where she was working at home at that time. She'd take her for a long walk in the afternoon and then put her in the kennel for about an hour to an hour and a half for her nap, before I got home. And so when I got home, she was ready to bust out, eat her dinner, and go. And that was really incredible how that simple change in her schedule, her level of attention, over a week or so, it went from she was only giving me 10 minutes to we could go we could go 20 minutes in a matter of a couple of weeks. I mean, that process really worked well for her.
That's encouraging, I think, for a lot of people to hear, because you're not the only person to ever face that. The dog not you just quitting, and for whatever reason, depending on the dog, depending on the stage of
Yep.
life and training that it's at, like, that's, probably was worse on you than it was a dog. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
frustrating place to be able to have a dog that just says, "Nope, I'm done."
Right.
But so it was as simple as just changing the environment on the dog is what it sounds like, just a small little tweak that made maybe all the difference for you guys.
Yeah, and I mean, just like raising children, I mean, they're so schedule oriented, and if you make some subtle adjustments, sometimes dogs don't like changes to their schedules, but the way it was coupled, the long walk outside, kind of doing her thing, and then her nap time, it's like she would wake up from her nap fresh, and now dad's home, and now it's time to go play. Let's go have some fun. So I think that really worked out well. But by the time I got to the next dog, I really knew to look for signs of her mental acuity kind of dropping off. And so I just kind of take a step back and I'd give her playtime. We would be in the middle of the training session. I'd just say, look, if you want to go sniff weeds and chase a deer, go ahead, go do that. But then she would quickly come back. And that's kind of how we go through that routine. But with Tilly, that really did make a huge difference. And we had other problems that we had to work through. She was a much softer dog, compared to my previous ones. Um, I never really corrected her much, but we were working on whistle stops, and I would send her on a retrieve, stop her with the whistle and then cast another retrieve. She did not like to be stopped on a retrieve. She thought that she was doing something wrong, and that was kind of the second problem. It took us quite a few weeks to kind of work through that for her to realize that I'm not stopping you because you're doing something wrong. I just need you to change directions. That's all.
Wow. It's amazing that y'all were able to navigate through that. So you felt like you navigated that challenge pretty well?
We did. We just had to, we just had to close the distance down a little bit, go back, reinforce whistles as a positive thing, not as a negative thing. And then as she continued to understand that, hey, this is about us getting out here to pick things up, she realized that at every step, I was rewarding her for just being attentive and patient. I was never, I was never, I was not correcting for bad behavior. I was reinforcing positive behaviors, even no matter how small they were.
That statement you just said is very profound, and it's easy for people to miss. I've just got to point it out. You're rewarding behaviors, even if no matter how small they were, in the right direction, not focusing on correcting. Whatever we focus on is going to grow. So if you focus on the negative and you're just trying to correct the negative, the more important thing is focus on the good, reward the good. The negative is going to normally fade off. Not to say you shouldn't correct your dog, but that's a slightly different approach than a lot of people take, and it produces some of the best results I've ever seen. I mean, it truly is incredible.
Well, and I'll tell you, I mean, this is just the way I think, but I, I've grown more as a person through this process because it's helped me personally realize that if you're going to make conversations, this is true at home, it's true in the workplace, the list of things you should not do is much larger than the list of things you should do. And I really found that helpful when working with and training employees on new tasks is to be very focused on what goal we want to achieve and the steps that we need to achieve to get there. I'm not explaining all the noise or the things that could go wrong. Let's just walk through the steps. And we're going to do it very slow at first, but we're going to get better with repetition. We're going to get faster and more efficient with repetition. And it's the very same process with the dogs. And when I learned to relax and let it happen and enjoy every single training session we did, I tell people all the time, it never feels like work for me. It is just something I truly enjoy doing every day.
What would you say was the big thing that helped you learn to like relax? What was the shift? Because I know a lot of people want their dogs to be really good and maybe are concerned that the dog isn't going to work out for whatever reason. I think that's a reasonable question, especially if you've never trained a dog before. It's genuinely a reasonable question and wonder if it's not going to turn out. What was kind of the big thing there?
That's a great question. I think it was really a combination of things. First, it was the realization that I was learning more than the dog was. That, generations of breeding has instilled those dogs with the ability to be calm, depending on which breeder you're working with, and everybody wants a different style dog. But I wanted a dog that was very calm by nature and very quiet by nature. So the dog had all of those ingredients from the beginning, and I really didn't have to do anything other than make the association to the commands: sit, heel, here. That's it. And with those three things, if those things are really solid, then being able to branch out into the next individual steps. I had to slow myself down because my career dealing with live plants, I mean, the decisions had to be very sharp. Uh, while it wasn't heart surgery or anything else, I mean, there's a lot of inventory value there, and it's a living organism and it's outside. So I would come home and I would feel myself kind of amped up. And I started to see that in the dog's reaction to me when I came home. And I'd been reading about how dogs can really sense your mood by your body language. And we are not nearly as conscious of our body language as we should be, I think. And, and so I really started paying attention to that and really forced myself to start letting go of that on my ride home from work. And I would judge my success by how the dog responded to me when I came in. And over time, it was more practice for me than it was for the dog. So that was really point number 2, that created the turning point. But point number 3 was seeing the dog in action. Was it ever perfect? Was it ever gonna be my image of perfect? No. But I wanted to see the dog happy, and I wanted to see the dog enjoy doing what it was born to do and do it with a pretty significant level of skill. Um, Kudos to the dog. I mean, because 'cause I'm only so good of a trainer, but I didn't want to go into a hunting situation, whether you're out of state or you're just with your buddies in the swamp, on the back of the farm. I didn't want my dog to be a disruption to a hunt, and I wanted her to be safe, and I wanted her to be safe around other people, and those were the 3 things that really did it for me.
That's huge. That's huge. I mean, that's pretty sharp to realize that, and I like where you're going with that line of thinking. It's not necessarily about in the moment, but you're taking steps before the moment that's allowing everything to unfold as it should. So that's incredible. My next question is, let's dive into this dog. Let's dive into your latest dog that you're working through the course, which again, I love that people train more than one dog through the program. It's amazing. But let's dive into your new dog and your journey thus far.
Transitioning from Tilly to, the current dog has probably 10 different names depending on who's in the house at any moment. Um, I just call her Peabody. Um, Long story behind that name, we won't get into that. It's a bird association that none of my family understands. But Peabody, we got Peabody from Wild Rose as well. Unfortunately, Tilly did not live very long. She had renal dysplasia. She was born with it. We didn't know it until we went through the process of getting her fixed, and they picked it up in the blood work. But anyway, Wild Rose was exceptional to us. Took very good care of us. Gave us pick of the litter from a new breeding that they had, and along the way, they were very supportive as I was doing the training. They knew I was working with CGA on the training program, and um, the team in North Carolina at their Hillsborough facility, they were exceptional in asking questions about, okay, so we know that this didn't go the way we wanted, but tell us about how the training went and what would be your ideal dog next. And as I mentioned, Tilly was a little bit on the soft side, as it related to, course corrections and training of any type. Whereas my previous dog she'll go run through a brick wall and be ready for the next adventure. I wanted something in the middle. And I have to say, 5 years removed, they absolutely nailed it. So Peabody her father was Gus, which was one of Deke's pups, and then the mother was Claire. And Claire was, when I met the mother, when we went to pick him up, Claire was like 46 pounds. I mean, she's a very small frame dog. Peabody now is 49 pounds, so that perfect size, very slender and exceptionally agile. She can jump fences, she can jump anything. And she has been the most energetic about the training program. And very early on, we were all after it the first year and a half. I mean, we worked together I would say probably 4 to 5 days a week, um, but in short bursts. We kept the sessions to less than 20 minutes. Um, but we have not been able to hunt as much as we would like to, but still every day now we take long walks together. We do heel training together. We do bumper training probably 2 days a week still. Um, and we have a lake nearby, so she gets to swim as much as she likes. But she's really been a fabulous dog, and even though we don't hunt much, on the opportunities that we do get to go, she performs very, very well.
So with your new pup, I mean, it sounds like things have gone really well. It sounds like, I mean, it sounds like, even more maturity as a trainer. You've grown. You're able to take the previous experience you've had and lead into it. One of the things that we talked about, on the phone when we were first discussing, I'd love to talk about is, this isn't just a hunting dog, right? This is an adventure dog too. Let's get into the adventure dog side of things. What do you guys do other than hunt and prepare for hunting? Let's get into the just general life
Wow.
that you and your dog have together.
Yeah, I mean, over the 5 years, I mean, both my kids have matriculated through school. Carter is my son is in his first year of law school, and my daughter is a sophomore in school. So she's seen the whole transition, but every step of the way, that dog is always ready to go, whether it's for a ride, go on a walk, um, and she's even if the kids have been gone for 4 to 6 months, the second they come through the door, she just goes straight to them. And I joke with my wife all the time that she's a mom's dog now, because when it's evening time, she's curled up on the couch right next to my wife. She sleeps with us every night. I mean, there's nothing that we don't do with her. I've gotten her accustomed to boats. She loves going fishing with me. She'll get in the boat and ride around the lake or go out in the marsh. We'll do short stints. And her favorite thing is watching dolphins. If you're just driving around in the salt marsh and the dolphins are breaking the water, she's on the side of the boat trying to get at them. But she really is. She loves being around people. And she never makes people uncomfortable. People can come in and sit down, and she goes and greets them and then back to her spot, like they're not even there. She's really a special animal, and, you know, I hope all the rest of them are like her.
That's amazing. Did you ever think you could have a dog like this? I know some of the ones from the past, they were kinda hard charging.
I
What's
really
you know
didn't. I
Yeah.
could have never imagined, to any level of detail, the characteristics that my dog displays today. I didn't know I needed a dog like that. Um, and I really do. I would feel comfortable. I feel comfortable taking her anywhere and everywhere off lead. I mean, she's actually more attentive when she's off lead. And the whole COVID thing, it changed people. I
Yeah.
I never will forget this, just walking down the sidewalks, during when COVID first started. You would see people coming down the sidewalk towards you, and they would deliberately go to the other side. I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute." And that trend continues, especially when people are walking dogs. They never want their dogs to be near other people. They don't want their dogs to be near other dogs. And, my dog is I'm like, "Okay, well, so if that's the way it's gonna be, I just walk off the sidewalk and Peabody sit." She sits and she watches them go by like they're carrying a pizza that she's not gonna touch. And, I think I wish everyone could have that, because I know I know there's a lot of people out there that got a dog, and maybe they didn't research it enough, the type of dog that they needed to get for the life that they live. Um, and it's just not a good match. And then some of the dogs can be pretty unruly, and I feel bad for the owners, and I feel worse for the dogs.
Um, yeah, that's not fun, having one that's unruly. Would you say, I mean, I know the breeding obviously is gonna play an important role as far as how your training experience
Yeah.
goes. whether you have to work harder versus where, because it is important to start with the right product
Yep.
because you have to work less to pull it out. Would you say, how would you say your training, like the foundation was conducive for that, right? Versus the way you used to train? Was there anything that stood out to you that was important, things you worked on early on that you feel like helped contribute to give you this dog?
Yeah, I think what's the best way to describe this? I think just having a connection with a dog where it wants more than anything to be with you. May not it may not be completely conscious of, "Hey, I'm doing this to please you. Uh, uh, I'm doing this because you feed me," but I I think that there's just a genuine interest on this dog's part to be a part of everything about her family. That's her group of people, and she wants to be in the middle of the fray. Um, and truly, I mean, that by itself kind of fosters among other people that, okay, I'm willing to show a level of patience with this dog that maybe I didn't have with previous dogs. Um, I hope that answers your question. That's just it just
Yeah,
never really thought about it from that perspective, but I definitely believe that the breeding went a long way in making the work way easier than it ever had been in the past.
100%. There's a lot that goes into a great dog. You got breeding, and it's always best to start with breeding. Start with a great breeder. Find one that you can trust. Find one that you like. Find one that does things, their practices or something that you like. But also, then once you got that part of the equation down, the whole training part of the equation is a big part of it too. The development process, like you said, the bond. I think the biggest thing that you said there was that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, having a dog that wants to be with you, not wants to be away from you, or associates you with, this isn't fun. What's one of the biggest things that you found that was there any tips or tricks you've got for people that you learned along the way that made training sessions more fun? Or was it just the style of training you feel that was conducive to, hey, dog enjoys this?
Yeah, I mean, I think changing the environment constantly, keeping the dog on their toes, don't take them to the same place all the time. You know, branch out. Find as many friends as you can who've got a big lawn or parks. Fortunately, where we live now, there are dozens of urban or rural and urban parks. So I can take her to a lot of different places and expose her to a lot of different things. I don't have access to, places where I can shoot with her, but that's not as important to me anymore as it used to be. She's kind of past that stage. But she loves exploring new places, and every time we go, um, and I think you told me this, is like, when you go, start out by giving them a few minutes to orient themselves to the location. Let them get all of that out of their system and then get to work. And especially with, Peabody and Tilly, that really worked very, very well.
That's great, man. I'm really happy for you, man. It seems like you've got an amazing dog. Seems like things have gone extremely well. Maybe you've definitely learned a lot along the way and you've grown a lot, which is incredible. So, um, let me ask this, coming from the previous ways you trained to where the way you train now, what would you say the biggest like just transformation for you was like your mindset, the mentality, you know, was there, is there more clarity in the way you train now that gives you that confidence, or were you confident before? Or, I know we talked about earlier, there was just a lot of times you were just running into things you just didn't know
Yeah.
that, and then all of a sudden, oh no, now, then you were aware of like, okay, I see where I went wrong here. So kind of fast forward to now, is there kind of a defining line in that for you on how you used to be versus where you're at now?
I want to make sure I explain this the right way. That's a great question. I want to make sure I explain this the right way so that someone doesn't take it out of context. I would not say that I'm confident. I would say that I'm comfortable. And I think
Wow.
maybe that's been my purpose all along, and maybe I just didn't know it. I wanted to be comfortable. I wanted to be comfortable in what the dog gave me, whether it was good or bad, control my own emotions so that we can be focused on the business of learning. And if it's just an off day, it's just going to be an off day. But that doesn't, that, that one day is not going to determine the long term success of that dog. But if handled poorly and handled poorly time after time, it could ultimately be the demise of that success, I think is what I found. Because I think back on it now to the things I did with my first two dogs, and there were there were things that I just did completely wrong. You know,
Yeah.
don't fuss at that dog. Don't hit that dog with the e-collar. I mean, it's just little things like that. I just feel like each day I go out now, I don't set high expectations. I just this is what we want to accomplish, and if this is all she's going to give me today, that's fine. But if she's successful, let's just keep building on it. You know, after playing golf my whole life, you hear about you see people who have a bad day on the golf course, and the first thing they do is they go to the driving range. And I've been a follower of the game for my entire life, and I've been associated with some very, very high level players, and they practice harder when they're playing well than they do when they're playing bad. Sometimes you just have to take a break and do a reset, leave it alone for a couple of days, and then come back to it. And that's kind of the approach we take. And we've had periods where just for weeks, it just feels like I'm not into this week, or I'm not into this thing you're trying to teach me. And so sometimes we just take a step back and then come back to it later on.
I like that. I think you're hitting on something too. There's days where you said this earlier, the dog, it's just not the dog's day. And there's days where it's not your day.
That's right.
and, and that can line up to where the dog's feeling good, and then one day and you're not, and then vice versa. That can stack up over time. But I like what you said there about being comfortable, because that is, I mean, that confidence is, that's a good way to say confidence is comfortable.
Mhm.
You know that this is going to work out. Like, you know that you're on the right path,
Yeah.
and that's a good place to be.
Yeah. There's so much. I mean, the level of detail that you guys have invested into the 52-week program, not only is it remarkable, because it truly does, it can create a dog who's pretty well prepared for nearly every single situation they're going to see, whether in a duck blind. Because the vast majority of them, I mean, you guys hunt a lot too. I mean, a lot of them are pretty straightforward. A lot of those retrieves are pretty straightforward, but there's 4 or 5 of them every day that are going to be, whoa, how did the dog pull that off?
That's what it's about. I mean, you got to be prepared for it all, but you got to be ready for the easy retrieves too,
Oh yeah,
and they're going to
yeah.
happen. Um, I know we're getting close to time, but I want to just keep going a little bit further, because there was something that we haven't really tapped into yet that I know we've kind of hit on, but I know you're passionate about this, and this is just mindset as a whole,
Hmm.
because getting it right here is the vast majority of the battle, because we are the person making the decisions. You said something early on in your work life with the trees, right? You're managing acres upon
Hmm.
acres of a lot of living organisms, and one wrong decision, and that's a serious consequence.
Right.
And so that's a lot of pressure. So, and then the same thing, we understand this when we're training our dogs. You're going through this journey, and in a sense, there's a lot of pressure because you're personally responsible to whether this dog turns out or not. Are the decisions that I'm making going to turn this dog out or not? That's a huge weight to carry. And so if you're not careful, that if you depending on your mindset, that can either send you off in the wrong direction
Right.
and have you going down a path of right thinking or wrong thinking. And so I know that you're kind of passionate about some of that topic. I would love to know just some of the, I don't know, top 2 or 3 nuggets of how have you been, because you've already shared some of it and it's been amazing. But what's some of the top 3, 2 to 3 that just comes to the mind as I'm speaking of this? Just mental spaces to get yourself in to be successful at training this dog, to be in that place where you just described as comfortable. Whether, however this goes, like, this isn't about forcing my agenda. This is about, we're going to just take it as it comes and we're going to work together to achieve this goal. Is there 2 to 3, or even if it's just one golden nugget of information that has worked for you personally, that you're like, this is what I think about when I'm going out and training. This is how I shift my mindset to make sure that I'm on par.
Uh, I think for me, I approach this like I've approached certain projects at work. And every one of us, we have pieces of our work that we do every day that eh, I really don't like doing that. And so, in which case, that's how much of your energy it gets. You put it on the back burner, you procrastinate, and you procrastinate long enough, then you're stressed because now I'm up against a deadline. And I think for me, the most successful projects I've ever done at work were things that I was really interested in. And I would just encourage everybody, i- if you're really interested in training a gun dog, and a good gun dog, maybe even a great gun dog for some people out there, that's where CGA is helpful. If you've already got the passion for it and the energy, then you're going to dedicate yourself. It's like people who successfully create good exercise routines where that is their time of the day, and there is nothing that is going to get in the way of their time of the day. When they've got to hit the gym or they've got to go run 5 miles, that was my mindset about this, is I was committed to being a better handler. And even when I started, I didn't realize then that truly this is about training a good gun dog is about learning to be a better handler. How you prepare for each session, how you guide each session, and how you recap each section, and be honest with yourself about how it went. And oftentimes I found, that's the second piece, oftentimes I found that if the dog fell short, it was because I hadn't prepared well enough, or I hadn't thought well enough about what she may do in this situation. So those are the 2 big takeaways for me.
That's good. That's golden information right there, man. I hope everybody writes that down. It's a big, it's simple, but it's powerful. I'll say that.
Well,
I'll say that. Well, Chris,
I hope it's helpful. I really wanna see people successful in this program, and I hope they enjoy it as much as I have over the last 8 years.
well, you've been with us 8 years, so that's saying something. You've enjoyed it along the way, and Chris, I gotta say, it's been an honor to have you on this podcast and to hear your story. It's I love all the just nuances of it, and from growing up there in South Georgia, that first duck hunt one near Thanksgiving, and here you are now, just continuing on in this new stage of life that you're in as the kids are in college
Yeah.
and you know business and everything. So it's been incredible. I'll ask this question I always like to ask as we kind of close this out, because I know we're bumping up on time, but what if you could tell yourself something, or if you could tell someone that was thinking about getting into this, what would be your one little piece of advice, your one little final tip? Like, hey, just keep this in your mind, and you're going to be okay as you go through the process of training a dog.
I think it lines up to what you communicate all the time, is be patient, be persistent, eh, be as and be as clear as you can be in your own mind about how the outcome should look. How do I want the dog to behave when I get to where I wanna be? What is the definition of a great gun dog? What is the definition of a good gun dog? What can they do? I think the more clear people are in their minds about their own expectations, and then divide by 4 or 10 and say, "This is where I gotta start." This is a building process, and it's a living being, and if there's not trust between 2 living beings, it's just not gonna work. Not to get to the level of great. So, be patient, be persistent, and trust the process.
That's good, Chris. Well, I appreciate you for being on, and I know the members do, and we're excited for you to continue this journey and continue building those unforgettable moments with your dog, as especially out there on the salt flats, getting after some redfish or
Exactly.
some dolphins.
Exactly. Thank you, Josh, for having me. I appreciate all of you guys. Appreciate the relationship we've had over the years, and my son will be joining here over the next year as well, so we'll get him on the path as well.